Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Beneath the Planet of the Apes in 1970. This is the second in the Planet of the Apes franchise, and it's directed by Ted Post. Now, here we are, another one of the box set that I've watched. These are all on DVD. So yes, the original sequels I'll be watching this, going through them. Now I have actually seen this before, many years ago. This is one of the ones I've seen. I believe I've seen Escape as well. So actually trying to think about it, and it must be these two, the only ones I've seen of the, the originals, the actual sequel original, and yes, here it is, and yeah, this is the least popular really, along with Battle, of the original, sequels, and basically yes, watched this film tonight. I've not seen it many years, and I've only seen it once, I believe. I never really liked it as a kid, obviously, and the original I loved. But yes, basically, what we have here is one that is very unpopular. It's got 6.1 on IMDb. And it has. What thing to note here is it's got a bit of less budget than the first, and it's not. It is much more B grade. The first one was this big, amazing production. Epic film. And just a masterpiece for me. I absolutely love that film. I'm not going to say if it's my favourite, of the whole franchise, but wait, to Dawn and War for that, to see, and yes, basically, this film, it's kind of hated on at times, and yes, after watching the film, I can kind of see why. I don't personally, think this is a bad film. I think I liked it more than, I used to like it. But yeah, I still, overall, I'll say now, I don't really, I don't like this film as a whole. I think I did like, a lot of it, but there's segments as well that I really didn't, and it's so flawed, and it's so much stuff that even the stuff I did like, which was mainly the first 45 minutes and the ending, 15 minutes, it's still at that point, average, maybe good. These parts, there is some lows of the film though, that really bring it down, and I think some of the stuff that happened in it, in terms of just the way it kind of affected everything, you could say the lore in the film, just really angered me. I think it just didn't really make sense as well. This film, the plot really is another astronaut lands, and this is obviously set off the first, and of course, you see the ending kind of stuff of the first one in the opening kind of scenes. You see the bit where Charlton Heston, Taylor basically dispersed from Zero and all that kind of stuff, and then you see the bit, of course, the very ending, and that's in the opening, and then you just basically, it cuts to him riding on the horse with Nova. Now, of course, Nova was in the first. She was a very big character in the first, and in this one, she continues her journey with that, and then basically you see this astronaut, and it's obviously jumped ahead in time, a small amount, and basically it's called Brent, and he really is the main protagonist of this film. You probably mistake him for Charlton Heston because he looks very similar, and it's at times he is a similar character, very much so. He's not a completely original character. He's kind of just like Taylor in a way, but yes, basically he in this film, for most of the film, Brent is the one that is with Nova, and they travel and they find this underground city, and yeah, this isn't spoilers, really, but if you don't want to know anything about the film, basically, watch the film before you watch this review. It's not really spoilers, but yes, they go to this underground city, and there's these mutated humans. Now, really, once we get into the city, I really liked the bits where Brent was discovering things, kind of from the past and all that kind of stuff. But once these humans come into it, basically in the future, it really goes downhill. Now, I think the first 45 minutes, it really brought back some of the the kind of the characters, Zero, Cornelius, and when they were there, they were quite enjoyable. Nothing's as good as the original. Nowhere near. It was merely an average film at these parts, really, and I think the thing that's really shocking is the effects. The first one has some amazing effects, stunning visuals overall. This one, it really It's not a massive difference in the budget when you really consider it. Basically, the budget is lower, but it's not enough to excuse the atrocious effects in this. I would compare it to kind of Diamonds Are Forever in Bond. That really had some shocking explosions and everything. There's just no excuse, even though the budget was less. There's no way you can kind of look at this and think people would buy it. They had the original to kind of go on, and the effects in that were stunning, and it all, the practicality of it all, and just the set pieces, just amazing. This one really, pales in comparison, and just on its own, it really, the effects are bad, and the visuals overall, they're not that bad, but at times they are a bit dirty looking and a bit grainy too much, and just a bit dull. Some of the locations, especially when they get underground, are a bit dull. Now, once they get underground, basically they go to the city, and it goes downhill from there. As I say, I don't think this film overall is bad, but there's some bad moments here. When these people come into it, they have these powers, and they're wearing these costumes. Now, it just becomes actually a bit where it becomes frustrating, of course, and after that, it actually becomes pretentious. I will say that. A Planet of the Apes film is actually pretentious in places for me. I just think it felt stupid. Really bizarre. When they were kind of praying and everything and singing, which is really, really weird. It just came off weird, and the way that they were very overly serious and just the stuff where the psychic powers were used, the kind of stuff, it just came across pretentious and just kind of stupid. Didn't work for me really, and then you've got the fact that really, unless you have seen the rest of them, I'm guessing, because they probably will then, but it's not explained in this film really, any of it. The stuff that happens it will leave you scratching your head, and then you've probably got to wait to the the next one or two. I'm obvioush thinking they will explain some more stuff there, but basically once you get to the end of the film, you're not really any of the wiser of why all this has happened, with all these humans, and just the way that really it's a bit convoluted. That's the sum of it really. The plot of this film, once it goes into the underground parts, is pretty convoluted. And another thing to note, this film is the action scenes. They're not up to scratch really until the very, very last 15 minutes of the film, where I'm not going to say what happens. It's kind of stupid, the idea of it, but yes, the actual action there is very, very good. Actually, it's an intense scene. The stakes are high, and it is very, very brutal. This film, this film is very, very nightmare action. Maybe unintentionally, at times maybe intentionally, but yes, the way this film ends, it's very, very, very dark. It's very, very bloody. This is a very violent film for Planet of the Apes. It's quite shocking actually, because the rest of the film, up until this point, wasn't like this. But then you've got loads and loads of, shooting and everything, and it's actually really, really graphic and quite shocking. The very ending, last 15 minutes is very, very violent, and but it is really well put together actually. At times the actual this fight scene, near the end, I did like that one. Some of the rest of it, the shooting and everything is a bit generic. But this fight scene, I'm not going to say what happens there or anything, who's involved, but it is actually impressive, and just I think that's one of my favourite parts of the film. This final act of the film, and until the ending. Now the ending to this film, again, I'm not going to actually say specifically what happens, but yes, basically it's very, very it's effective in the way that it kind of disturbs. The first one, of course, disturbed, but it was an ending that was not just effective in that, it was just really a perfect ending, you could say, in everything, in the context of the film, the way it came together, and the way that all the ideas in the film kind of culminated to give a message, to give an effect, and of course the way it was shot and everything like that, and just the slow kind of realization, and basically this film is effective, in the disturbing nature, but then it is kind of a bit cheap as well, and it doesn't explain everything really at all. It doesn't explain anything, and it's kind of just weird, the voiceover and everything. As overall this film it is cheap at times. There's no denying that. There's no excuse. It's just not as well made as a film. and it just it's not got the script, definitely not the first. The script is in places it's quite good. Other times it is quite weak. I would say it's a bit stupid. Some of the dialogue really it baffles me in this film, and basically when the humans are trying to explain certain things, it sounds really dumb. It's not being thought through kind of thing, and yeah, but the performances in this film I will praise. Charlton Heston, now nowhere near as good as he is in the first one. Of course, it's not the best to be expected, kind of thing. But basically, he gives a solid performance in this film. I think the actor that plays Brent is good. Actually, yeah, no, Brent is a decent character. They do some stupid things with Brent throughout the film, but that's mainly just the script. The actual performance of this character is decent. Actually, Linda Harrison as Nova. Once again, actually really good. A very hard performance, and she pulls it off well. Nowhere near again as good as she is in the first, and there is a couple of campy moments. This film is campy, it does have that feel, and yeah, sometimes it's just a bit not the enjoyable camp at times, but a lot of the time it is. The thing I was disappointed as well, in the fact that Zira and Cornelius, they showed up and they were kind of setting this thing up, with their storylines in the first half, and then they kind of disappeared as characters for the rest of the film, and it never really got wrapped up, And this is a sequel, yes, but really, it's not okay really with me to kind of leave things completely, just cut them off within a film, and then of course they're main in some of the other sequels, but within this film it was kind of just a bit all over the place at times. They're kind of a bit messy, the narrative. And there was characters showing up here and there, and it never really came through. It never really followed through. As well, Zeus. Some of the motivations there and kind of what he stands for is a bit slightly, altered in this film without proper thought. I feel now, and that's most of the negatives. And I just think, at times, as I say, it does get a bit pretentious, and just it does have a bit of a boring feel in these parts as well. When the humans are first revealed. But yeah, basically, I think I don't think it's a bad film. I think it's under average for sure. Overall, it never really comes together. Well, I mean, it does have an effect, but it doesn't have an ending where really the rest of the film really came together. Within this, it feels more like a kind of not a cliff. Well, yes, a cliffhanger, but not a great one, and a one that it has an effect, but it's kind of one note, and it doesn't really. There's loads of different ideas in this film. Some of them are quite clever, other times quite dumb. Even the clever ones aren't really fully explored. I feel in this film, it's just they're there and they're kind of interesting and that, but never really fully delved into, and they're never completely explained as well what's going on here. I believe, of course, some of the later ones are time travel more involved, but this one, it just feels like it's a bit convoluted, the plot, and as well, you've just not got anywhere near as good arcs of the characters. And the fact that the Zero and everyone disappear kind of, in certain parts of the film and never really return. Now, of course, Charlton Heston when he's in it is really good, as is Linda Harrison, and the other members of the cast. Brent, the actor who plays him, they're decent, but only goes so far to bump the film up from being kind of weak, because I think it's mediocre, and I think I'd give it dead on kind of middle mark, a 50%. I think it's not a film I really disliked, but I didn't like it overall as a film because it did ruin a lot of things that could have been more followed through more, and it also it kind of and I'm not a person to say it's going to ruin the law of the first or anything, but hopefully they pick up that they kind of explain things more in the third one, and I'll be watching that fairly soon, and kind of go through it more and kind of just explain what's happened here with the timeline and everything, because it was kind of stupid at times, and it just didn't it wasn't very clear at all. It is convoluted for sure. And I think there's some decent stuff here in this film. It's not a bad film for me. I understand. People really hate the film. It's a massive step down, of course, from one of the best sci-fi films of all time. This is not, but it's not like one of the worst sequels of all time or anything like that. On the same card, it's kind of it's under par for sure. I think there is moments where the effects are atrocious, and there's no excuse. It's kind of you just watch the first and then you go to this. It's kind of baffling. The budget wasn't considerably lower to kind of warrant the awful effects, and it's just not the case. It's just not necessary, and just the way that the filmmaking was in this film was nowhere near as good. The direction wasn't as good. Ted Post at times shows some promise, but really overall, it's at best average direction. The cinematography, the editing, at times it is a bit stupid as well. When you see Charlton Heston and flipping back, but overall, the editing is just decent again. And it has its bad moments, but overall decent. And the music in this film is it's fine, but it's nothing special. And yeah, I did like the first 45 minutes, and the last 15. I think it had some emotion there as well in the last 15 minutes, and it did affect me. It did make me care as well. And stuff. And the character of Nova, of course Taylor and Brent, throughout the film are good, definitely. I think, and when they're there, Cornelius and Zira, are definitely enjoyable as well. And yeah, you have some interesting ideas. It did compel me in places, definitely, and especially the last 15 minutes as well. It was, it has some decent parts. The fight scene I think was very good at times. And it did have some tension. It was a bit of a cut-off ending. It didn't come together. Like I think it should have done. But it did have an effect, and it did. The final act wasn't bad at all. It's one of the best parts of the film. But yes, overall, I think it is a mediocre film because of all this balances out, and it doesn't. It has moments where it really just annoys me, frustrates me with what's going on, what they do, and how certain people, depart from this. It really is insulting, actually, a little bit. But yes, mediocre, not a bad film, but nearing into the weak mark. I just think, overall, I did. I could have given this a like, if it wasn't for the kind of that segment, about 25 minutes, just after the 45-minute mark. Once they get into they first get into the underground city. It is quite boring and pretentious as well and stuff, and just doesn't really make much sense to me. But yes, 50%, and yeah, it's not one that I liked overall, but not a bad film. If this is the worst one of the originals, which of course some say Battle is the worst, then of course I'm still saying Tim Burton's one is the worst, because this is better, for me, for what I remember, than the Tim Burton reboot. But I've never seen Battle, so who knows about that? But yeah, basically, I wouldn't say that this is a film you should watch. Certainly not if you're a massive fan of the original and you don't want to. You're not too fussed about the sequels. If you don't want to watch them, then you're not really missing much with this one anyway, because it's not that good really, and I'm sure I like it probably more than most people, actually, because it's quite hated. So yeah, it's not great, but it's not quite bad for me. But yeah, thanks for watching my review.